Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 10, the opulence of the Absolute, text 16. Vaktum, those who can see in their mobiles, or shall I just read them? Okay. Vaktumarhasya sheshena divya hi atma vibhutayah yabhir vibhutibhir lokan nimanstvam vyapya tisthasi. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhayacharana Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these words. Purport: in this verse it appears that Arjuna is already satisfied with his understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. By Krishna's grace, Arjuna has personal experience, intelligence and knowledge and whatever else a person may have. And through all these agencies, he has understood Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For him there is no doubt. Yet he is asking Krishna to explain his all-pervading nature. People in general and the impersonalists in particular concern themselves mainly with the all-pervading nature of the Supreme. So Arjuna is asking Krishna how he exists in his all-pervading aspect through his different energies. One should know that this is being asked by Arjuna on behalf of the common people. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamarupa Kadamahiyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shritaf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these words. Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he says that as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is already fully satisfied that the person standing in front of him, Krishna, is not an ordinary human being, but he is himself the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How he is completely satisfied by that? Today, modern day scientists will call Arjuna a very primitive type of person who just accepted some human being as God. They will not accept Arjuna's personal experience of anything which is beyond the scientific way of understanding this world. So, according to the scientific way of understanding, everything that exists should be perceivable by our present senses, should be explainable by our present reasoning and logic. And if there is something which is said to be imperceivable beyond our present understanding of the science, then it should be a blind belief, a blind faith. So on these grounds, all the present day scientists, they will ignore these statements which we are reading here in Bhagavad Gita, where just few verses before Arjuna said that Sarvam etad ritam manni yanmam avadasi Keshava. Whatever you say, I accept it. So modern day man will say, why you should accept just anybody who is saying anything? You should ask for the proof. Actually, Arjuna said this statement after personally experiencing Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because previous to that, Krishna, he gave him Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamu Payantite. Krishna gave him the necessary intelligence, the necessary vision by which he could understand that this person is Param Brahma, Param Dhama, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. He is Param Brahma, he is the Supreme Absolute Truth. Param Dhama, he is the Supreme Abode. He is the Supreme Person. He could personally realize, like the scientists say, show me. So Arjuna saw it. Arjuna saw that this person is the origin of everything. But only Arjuna could see. Not everybody could see. So they will say that, oh, if it is really so, then everybody should be able to see. So show me God. If Arjuna saw, then I should be also able to see. But even from the modern scientific perspective, if a scientist is able to see something, not necessarily that layman will be able to see that also. So then should all of us laymen should disbelieve what the scientists say, because just because I, untrained in science, cannot see something and only a scientist can see, so based on that, should I disbelieve? Should I not accept the science? Like for example, the scientists say that there is dark mass and dark energy in the universe, which nobody can see. When we see in the sky, we see it's night and we see stars, but dark mass, according to the modern science, is a substance which can never be seen by anyone. Nobody has seen it, nobody is seeing it, nobody can see it in the future. Why? Because it is so dense that light doesn't get reflected by that, it gets absorbed in it. Therefore, it is called dark mass. It is so dark that light is not reflected. So, no one has ever seen, no one will ever be able to see it. Then the question arises, then what is the scientific basis of accepting that there is such a thing called dark mass and dark energy? Because after all, the modern science is based on what we see. So if nobody has seen, no scientist has seen dark mass, dark energy, then on what basis do they accept that such a thing exists? So then we have to understand, the layman, that now the science has advanced and the science is no more restricted to accept things what we see. Though earlier that was the claim of the science, that we believe only on what, we accept only what we see. But now the science has further advanced and now they accept things which they have never seen, we have never seen, nobody can ever see, but still science says, it is true, so it should be true because the scientists say so, and we have to accept it because whatever the science says, even though they don't see it, but must be true because present day the scientists have attained a status that whatever they say should be true because they are doing magics. They are creating technologies, they are creating things which previously was unthinkable. They are going to Mars, they are going to moon, Mars, and they are creating such gadgets which was unthinkable before. So therefore, the proof that whatever they say is true is they are making so many things. So they must really be knowing everything. So based on that, we should accept. But that's not what the science claims to be scientific. So science has, in one way we can say, has further advanced that now from the era of Einstein and further, it is not necessary that we have to perceive something to be true. If mathematically something is proved to be true, though none of us had ever seen it or can ever see it, is still just based on mathematical calculation, it should be accepted as true. This is a further advancement of science. So what happened? For long, the scientists have accepted existence of gravitational law, gravitational pull, which keeps every planet in its orbit. So, according to the modern science, Earth and all the different planets, they are revolving around sun. And so, why do they revolve around the sun? Why they just get thrown away? Why do they go in circles around the sun? So the scientists, they have explained that there is some force called gravitational pull, which is by dint of that mass which is present in the sun and in the earth, that they pull each other, which they call it as gravitational law, the gravitational pull. But then what happened after many decades of this being accepted as true? The scientists found out, they calculated all the mass, available mass, whatever objects they are able to see, all the stars, all the planets, which is actually in itself a very difficult thing to understand. Do we really see everything? Do we have access to everything that exists in the universe? But accepting that they have access, they have calculated all the available mass in the universe. And when they calculated all the mass that is available in the universe, and when they applied the law of gravitation, they found that there is not sufficient mass available for the gravitational pull which is required to keep everything in order. That was a very big problem in front of the science, because so far the science has been thinking that this is the law of gravitation and the mass, there is a law they have derived that with this much mass, this much is the gravitational pull, and we have been learning it in our schools and getting degrees and so many things. But somehow at one moment they discovered that there is not sufficient mass. So either the law of gravitation is wrong, or their calculation of the mass is wrong, or they are not able to see everything which exists in the universe. One of these possibilities should be there. So initially they thought that yes, law of gravitation is not wrong and our calculation of the mass is also not wrong. So the third thing left which should be adjusted is that probably we are not able to see all the mass that exists in the universe. Our calculation shows that there should be more mass, but we don't see that mass. Our calculation shows that there should be more mass, but we don't see that mass. So therefore, there should be some mass which nobody can see, and that is called dark mass. So this is a new invention which happened, which the invention which nobody ever saw, nobody will ever be able to see, but still it is a new invention, because the calculation shows that there should be some mass, which by any instrument we cannot see. Only by calculation we understand that there should be something like that. And do we know how much percentage of the total mass is that mass, dark mass and dark energy, which nobody has seen, which nobody will see? It's not a small percentage. It's a very, very huge percentage. The latest description, the latest knowledge, the latest information which we have from the scientists, that how much percentage that unperceivable mass has is around 96%, something like that. Just imagine, it has been around 300-400 years since the modern science started doing wonders, explaining everything. And we are at the peak, at the zenith of knowledge now with the science. And being at that zenith of science, now we discover that we have never seen 96% of the universe. And still we are at the zenith of our understanding of the universe. There is a book written by Stephen Hawking, The Grand Design, in which Stephen Hawking is a very big name in the science today. He is like modern day Einstein. So he says in his grand design, the science has understood everything about the universe. This is what he claims. The science has understood everything about the universe. When 96% of the mass and energy we have never seen, we only, by our calculation, we think that there should be something like that, and still we claim that we have understood everything about the universe. If 96% of the mass is unreachable to our science, then how can we claim that we have understood everything? Isn't it more logical to say that we are guessing a lot? But then who will accept the science, and who will go to the schools, and who will go to the universities, and who will give the taxes to the government, which will then pay to the scientists? So therefore the scientists will never accept that actually they don't know. Instead of saying they don't know, they will say, yes, there is some dark mass, dark energy, 96%, and we have understood it, we know it. And then these figures also will keep on changing. So the point here is that to ordinary man and to the school going kids and college going youth, it appears that scientists really know what they are talking about. But actually, if you are a little intelligent, or if you are deep into the science, then you know how less the scientists know and how they are bewildered on so many things which are not reflected in our textbooks and in the media. So for the ordinary person, it appears that scientists have solved all the riddles of life. They are in control. So we feel very safe in the hands of scientists. So whatever scientists create, technology, things, we have developed an immense faith in them that really they know everything. So whatever new they are coming up with, whatever gadgets, whatever ideas, because they know everything, we need not worry. We just need to follow them. So just follow them. Whatever new ideas, whatever new thing, just follow them blindly, because they are the real God. We were mistaken for so long that there is some God, but now we have understood who is the real God. Scientist is the real God because he really knows everything, though he still dies. Why he should die if he really knows everything? Why Einstein should die? Why Stephen Hawking should die? Stephen Hawking had only one finger working. He was suffering from a disease by which all his muscles were paralyzed except one finger. And still, he said that we have understood the brain of God. That means there is no God. We have understood how everything works. So, though he knew everything works, but still he could not make his body work. Isn't it laughable thing? One who knows everything, if he knows everything, then you should be able to at least make your body work like anybody else. Correct? And then why should you die if you really know everything? That means you know why death occurs, and according to them, death is nothing but some rearrangement of chemicals. So, if death is nothing but rearrangement of chemicals, and they know all the chemicals because they know everything, they claim that they know everything. That means they should know all the chemicals, they should know how different chemicals react together to make life, and what chemicals or what arrangement disorganizes to cause death. That is the meaning of that we know everything. So, if really they know everything, then why they should die? At least they should stop their death. Correct? So, but still layman does not question it, because they are giving them internet, they are giving them newer and newer models of cars. They are now Elon Musk is taking people to the space, and he promises to take us to Mars. So, with this promise, therefore, we do not question so many things that a scientist says. So, here Lord Krishna is talking of his vibhutis. Arjuna is asking, please tell me how you exist everywhere, how you control everything. So, this is the context that present day world and this explanation of how everything exists, how everything is controlled, what a contrast exists, in what a contrast we are living today. Here we are following something which is completely ridiculed by the society, by the contemporary society, by the mainstream. Those who follow Bhagavad Gita, they are deemed, they are seen as the most foolish of all, the most unreasonable people. They just, you can't talk reason with them. It's just, they are living in fantasies, fantastic world. So, but we should clearly understand that if at least we are living in fantastic world, scientists too are living in a very fantastic world of their own. At least this much we should understand. So, it's not that science has solved all the riddles. Just a few years back, in a very reputed science magazine, there is a science magazine with this name, there were a list of questions which still scientists have not been able to solve. At least they publish somewhere, but it will never come in our textbooks that there is something which scientists still don't know. So, in that, the question are like, what is life? How this universe has come into existence? These questions are still riddle for the scientists. They don't know still. But that will never get reflected in our textbooks in outside. Like in our textbooks we read how man has evolved from monkeys and from apes, and they, in our biology books, they give us a diagram where they, it's in every textbook of biology. They will give a image showing the embryos of human beings, fish, reptiles, like that. And they will all look very similar when they are in very early stage. And as embryo grows, they will become more and more different from each other. So by that they prove that we had common ancestor. It is reflected because the embryo in the very early stages, they are all similar, whether be it fish or human being or reptile or dog or cat. That shows that we had common ancestor. We just evolved from a common ancestor. And as we grew, we, because of the nature, we just, because of the pressure of the nature, natural selection, newer and newer species got evolved. But originally we all evolved from one single species, and that was very simple. So that's what they show us. And we learned that figure, and we were convinced that's so. So there is one scientist who has written a book, Darwin's Black Box. So many books he has written. So he is a biologist. So there he recounts that he has studied this in his school, the biology books, and he was convinced that yes, this is true, evolution is true, Darwin is true, everything is true. And then he studied further, and he entered into college, and then further PhD, and then he became a professor in some university. And now he was actually seeing the embryos through his electron microscopes, because he reached that level. And then once it struck to him that actually these embryos, even in the very early stages, they don't look the way it is shown in our textbooks. It is struck to him, and then he investigated it, and then he found out that the person who drew that image, he went into the in depths of that person, he just made it by his hand. It was not an image which actually it is, because he was now seeing that actually embryos don't look the way it is shown in that figure. So then from where this figure came? If the embryos of the fish and the reptiles and the humans don't look like this, then from where this image came? He investigated that, and he found that it came from the hand of that man who drew it. It was not the actual figures. And then further, it doesn't stop here. He further investigated, and he found that scientists for long, because electron microscope is there for long, for so many decades, scientists know that this figure is wrong, and still the figure continues to be the same in our textbooks. Isn't it amazing? Because why this happens? Because scientists are completely convinced that what we have understood by science is true and nothing but true. So if there is some evidence which goes against it, they think that there must be something wrongly, somehow something is okay, we are not able to understand it right now, but just our theory is right, but just with some more investigation we will understand it. So don't make a big fuss about it. If the evidence goes against the established theory of science, then that evidence is either removed from the public eye, or it just remains hidden in some storehouse. Based on that, there is a big book written by our devotees who were scientists also, Sadaputa Prabhu and others, The Hidden History of Human Race, which is compilation of hundreds of such figures, facts which goes against this Darwin theory. Not just one or two, hundreds and hundreds. So, this is really amazing. So, again the point which I am trying to drive here in is that the scientists claim that they know is wrong, is a bluff, and they are living in a world of their own fantasies, and by their own definition of science they are wrong. It's what they accept today is unscientific in many ways by their own definition. So then why should they not be open for accepting another worldview, to at least begin investigation into another possibility? So this another possibility is the Vedic paradigm, but the hardcore scientists, very difficult for them to do so, because they are, as the Bhagavad Gita explains the reason why, because namam dushkituno mudha prapadyante naradhama maya apritagyana asuram bhavam ashita, because they are envious of God. Therefore, though they are proved, they are confused, but still they will never accept that they are confused and that they need to look for something else. There is a small story about it. There was once a fight between two people. One said that the knife is better, one said that the scissors is better, and they argued, they were not able to come to any conclusion, and the person with the scissors said, no, scissors is better, no, knife is better, scissors is better. So ultimately fighting, they went into to a river bed, and fighting, they entered into the river and they started getting drowning. But still, while drowning also they showed, no, scissors is better, no, knife is better. So stubborn, they will not accept their defeat even till death. So that is the case even with modern day science today, that in so many ways scientists are completely puzzled, but still they will not accept. So from these texts of Bhagavad Gita, we can understand that we begin to understand when we stand under, that is called understanding. When we stand under the Supreme, accepting our very insignificant position in compared to Him, then only we can begin to understand. So therefore here in the previous verse it was said that Krishna, you only know yourself. Even big demigods, Brahma, Rudra, they don't know. So this is called submissiveness. This acceptance that we are very tiny, we are very small. How is it possible for us, the very tiny souls, on our own, to know this vast universe, how it works, how it came into existence? This is simply arrogance to think so. It is just beyond our capacity. Just like a small ant crawling in this hall, is there any possibility that that ant, though it may be the wisest of all the ants available on earth, is it possible for even such an ant to understand that this is a temple hall belonging to a International Society for Krishna Consciousness in a city called Accra, which is the capital of Ghana? Is there any possibility of that ant, which was a Nobel laureate ant, by the way? She was given the Nobel Prize among the ants because she was the wisest of all. But even then, is there any possibility of such an ant to understand? No, it's just beyond the scope of the ants. Their sense organs, their intelligence, it's just beyond their scope. So then, why is it not possible that it is beyond the scope of human beings to understand the reality in toto? This is very much possible, isn't it? At least logically it is possible, correct? And otherwise also, by seeing the vastness, and by even by science we see how actually one of the scientists said that the more we learn, the more we understand how less we know. So, with this being the case, it is only reasonable to accept that actually it is beyond our tiny brains to understand this word. Prabhupada used to give the example of the frog in the well. So, we are just like the frogs in the well, but we are full of false ego, and therefore that Prabhupada said that frog, he burst. He said that, oh, this ocean, how big can it be? So, he took a deep breath and tried to expand himself so that he could equate with the expansion ocean, and with that expanding he just burst. So, like that. So, very important point to understand here that this process of understanding the absolute truth begins when we become humble enough to accept that we are very tiny, and from that very moment we understand that we are small, we begin to understand what was previously ununderstandable. We immediately begin to understand. So, this is the beginning when we accept, we surrender. Jnane prayasa udpasya namanta eva. Bhagavatam says, when we give up this false ahankar that I can know by myself, jnane udpasya namanta eva, when we bow down in front of whoever is Almighty, I bow down, I am very tiny, I can't know you on my own. Namanta eva. From that time onwards, our real path to understand absolute truth begins. Correct. So, unless without that, it's not going to happen. So, Arjuna therefore is teaching by his own example, how by surrendering to Krishna only, by surrendering to the Supreme Lord only, we can actually begin to understand him, and not just we can begin to understand, but by Krishna's grace we can understand him to the extent that we can enter into real relationship with him, and to the extent that we can be free from the cycle of birth and death and live eternally with him. But everything begins with surrendering. With these words we will end here. Hare Krishna. If there is any question or comment, we can discuss. Yes, Hare Krishna.
My worry is these scientists we normally talk about, devotees also join them in studying their courses. When it reaches some point like this, what is our contribution? Do we follow them? Or we also, I don't know, do we contribute different things to them in the course of the lectures? Or we just follow them?
So the question is, if I am just trying to understand, that sometimes devotees also go along with those scientists. So should we just follow them?
Studying with them. The course of studying.
Studies, science in the universities,
Yes.
devotees also in the academic field.
Because we know something different more than them.
Uh-huh.
We just have to follow what they are teaching.
Uh-huh.
We have to contribute something also to them. Would they accept?
Uh-huh. Srila Prabhupada wanted us, at least some of us, to know about what they are talking, to refute them, to speak in their language, to be accepted by them in that way, and but actually to try to show them that how the science is imperfect, and then gradually bring them to the point that how they should be open for this Vedic science. So Prabhupada therefore established the Bhaktivedanta Institute with this idea that those who are trained in science, devotees, they should in their language present this science of Krishna consciousness, like that. But yeah, we should not go along with them definitely, because then we are lost about our Krishna consciousness. Sometimes in India, it should be here also, because people are here theistic, they accept God. But just the professor who is teaching in the university the science, so how is it possible that in the class and in this college he is always talking about science, which is rooted in the fact or in the understanding that there is no God, and when he comes home and then he goes to church and he celebrates Easter and everything, how is it possible? Similar thing in India, big professors, but then when they come they go to temple, and then the pujari asks, what is your gotra, lineage, and they say we are from Brihaspati, from this, but in the class their gotra is Kapi gotra. Kapi means monkeys. They teach that they are descendant of monkeys, but in the temple they say we descend from Rishi. So how they are saying? Somehow it doesn't click to them, or they just are teaching for the sake of earning money, but their conscience doesn't prick to them that why we should teach something which is wrong, why we are misleading others, but for money they can do anything. Like that. Hare Krishna. Okay, so we stop here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.